From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal, Fagan. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It's September 22nd as we're publishing this. It's the 17th as we're recording it. Welcome to Strange News. Now, we wanted to, we got so much stuff to get to. This is a science-heavy exploration. I don't know where we want to start, you guys. You ever get tired of human politicians?
Nah, they're great.
10-10, no notes?
Big fan.
Fully over it. Let's bring on all of the robots.
Tight, yes. That is our pal Matt Frederick speaking on behalf of Albania's tourism board, which we're all unofficial members of. Yeah, one thing we wanted to open the show with here is that Albania has officially appointed an AI bot as a minister to tackle corruption.
Wow.
Mixed feelings, but not entirely negative.
Yeah.
Just gonna put that out there.
Yeah. Maybe cutting past the root of political corruption, which is humans. That's what I've always kind of thought. Like, I could see AI being useful in government if it's just focusing on like dispassionate, algorithmically generated policies that are based on the best possible outcome. But we know it's not there yet is the problem, and people are rolling it out way too willy-nilly. But I do see the potential for this maybe, in the future.
It's just going to gaslight everybody in their parliament or whatever they use in Albania.
Oh, right. Or whatever they use in Albania.
Or just tell them their ideas are great and they should just make it into a project.
That's what I mean. Yeah. They're just going to be like, oh, yeah. They're going all Bruce Buffer with it. Do you know who that is?
Love bomb. I don't know who Bruce Buffer is.
No, I don't either.
He's the UFC dude who always says, it's time.
Oh, it's that guy.
That's what they decided.
That's where Strickland got it from. This AI bot is named Delia, Diella, which means sun in Albanian. There's a great article from the Straits Times, which talks about this in depth, published on September 11th. The idea here is that Delia will manage all the public procurement stuff. So like when the Albanian government needs to work with a private company to figure out the best bid for, infrastructure, like building a road or a bridge or what have you, Delia will be the entity that decides who gets that money. Delia will then, if everything works out, that's my cat.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. Peanut gallery.
Will avoid all of the typical, right, I know, vulnerability points of human private industry interactions, which we know are super corrupt throughout the world, except for maybe Singapore and Bhutan. No, just Singapore, actually.
And they're only not corrupt because you'll get caned.
Yeah, they're not corrupt the way that Dr. Doom's Latervia is not corrupt. You know what I mean? Because they're not really bothering with democracy. Anyway, we want to hear your thoughts on this idea. Obviously, I think we're all on the same page, as Noel said earlier. There are mixed feelings because maybe the technology isn't, as you said, isn't there yet. We also know that AI, or whatever is called AI at this point, typically is going to carry the imperfections of its human creators, and it doesn't have a moral compass as of yet. So you can totally say the quiet part out loud. You can program corruption.
Yeah. Well, and you could butter it up like all the other ones, like we've seen. You just talk nice to them, tell them amazing things about themselves, and then they're like, oh, okay, because we're friends.
Yeah, And this is tied in, by the way, we'll move on, but this is tied into Albania's international reputation for corruption, especially given that so many criminal organizations launder money effectively through there, like kind of like how the mob does or used to do in New Jersey and construction projects. So we'll see how it goes. Albania is hoping to use this new technology to tighten up a little bit as they attempt to join the European Union. So more to come on that. But while we're talking about technology and science, you guys, what say we take a break for a word from our sponsors and get to a pretty disturbing story? And we've returned. So this may not, this is a story, guys, we and our fellow conspiracy realists will probably find disturbing, but for people who hate nerds, this is great news.
Oh, dear. Who hates nerds? Nerds are the best.
Right?
Salt of the earth people.
Yeah, and we're a bit biased in that regard, to be fair. The issue is something called a brain drain. And we know what a brain drain is. It occurs in smaller and larger levels. A brain drain is a term for when people who are highly skilled in one industry or line of thought or another leave their original place to go to another place for better opportunities. This happens throughout the world. A lot of people, become doctors, for instance, and they move from a rural area to a city, right? That has more economic opportunity for them, right? And probably better career propositions as well.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a term that I hadn't thought about in a long time, but it came up in conversation with a friend the other day around smaller towns, even where like they can experience brain drain, or even college towns where people, graduate and then move on. And there's really very little talent pool remaining in those areas.
Yeah, and that's becoming a crisis here in the just in the medical sphere of the United States, especially in smaller towns or places outside of cities where they need a hospital open, but it's becoming more difficult for that hospital to stay afloat. Very, very scary stuff. Right now, what we're seeing is a macrocosmic version of that. It's getting talked about a little bit in the news, but maybe we start it this way. Technological tensions are rising between China and the United States. There's a lot of exciting science happening here. However, a lot of U.S.-based academics, boffins, STEM types, scientists, and researchers are having a tough time. They're concerned that politics are stymieing science, what with all the budget cuts, what with all the culture wars regarding various types of research. In a recent poll by Nature magazine just at the end of March this year, 75% of U.S. scientists said they were considering leaving the United States and looking for jobs in Europe or Canada.
Well, I mean, it's such an anti-research, anti-science administration right now. And so many of these cuts that have been happening, or these Doge manipulations, are threatening those types of positions. Like, I think we all know people who work in research institutions who feel incredibly unsafe in their livelihoods. Why wouldn't you do that if you had the opportunity to do so?
This world is a technological superiority game, right? We've talked about that before in most ways, especially when it comes to statecraft. Let's say your goal is to get scientists to your country to develop weapons and defense mechanisms for your country, and you wanted to court the top scientists in specific fields. What is one way to get those scientists to say yes to your offer, instead of having a lot of loyalty for whatever country or company that they currently work for?
It's not only pay, it's opportunity and the ability to be supported in things that interest them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Exactly.
They'll do the other thing if they get to do the thing that they're passionate about too,
Exactly. Yeah. I was describing it to a friend who has actually relocated to Japan full time as part of this science exodus. And the way we described it is, let's say you're a pretty well-known actor. We're all familiar with the term paycheck movies. That's when an actor does an actor, a director, a DOP or whatever, they do a project that maybe they're not passionate about because it gives them enough financial support for them to do the smaller things that they do care about.
One for them, one for me is something you hear thrown around a lot.
And that's the bargain that scientists made in World War II, or at the close of World War II. And we're seeing another wave of that. It is happening now. It's not being widely reported in honesty to the public, but let's go to a great article by the Association of American Universities. We don't know if they're part of Atlas Network. We haven't checked because they're like 600 something organizations in Atlas. So on June 27th, 2025, the Association of American Universities summarized some pretty disturbing stuff if you care about the U.S. being good at science. A lot of it's coming from Europe. On April 26th of this year, the Danish Chamber of Commerce CEO, Brian Mikkelsen, went on Instagram and said this: to all the brilliant researchers in the U.S. feeling uncertain right now, Denmark is open. We need you. Across the Atlantic, we're watching with concern as politics begin to overshadow science. So Denmark's in the race. He also, fun cultural note, while he's saying this on social media, do you guys know what song was playing in the background?
You can't always get what you want. No, I don't know.
That'd be funny. It's Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA.
Oh, okay.
So you're born here, and now welcome to Denmark.
Welcome to Denmark. And I love the accent.
Well, the irony is so thick. I mean, because obviously this administration is also quite pro-war, renaming the Defense Department, Department of War, and all of that, and being quite hawkish. And to your point, Ben and Matt, there's technology and technological superiority jockeying that goes into being the best at that. And so when you start to deprioritize all of these other things, then you start to lose that talent pool that could help you win that race. And it's just a little short-sighted, if not incredibly short-sighted.
It's Mr. Magoo level short-sighted, to be quite honest, right? And look, this is not to sound xenophobic or anything like that, but China is going to be the next big dog. The writing's on the wall. We'll talk a little bit more about the science there that is phenomenal. In later episodes or strange news or listener mail, folks, we want to hear from you. If you're a science refugee, conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com. We also want to share a couple of other stories just to let you know how hungry other nations are for American scientists. The Minister of Science and Innovation over in Spain had, prior to the Danish remarks, had said, look, we're going to expand our program to attract international scientists, whomever you might be, from whatever country you might be happening to hear this in. They specifically said, we're looking for researchers who are in the United States and are being scorned by the current administration. Here's where it gets crazy. Spain put their money where their mouth is. They said, we're going to give the equivalent of $1 million to each researcher. That's your paycheck, movie. And if you are coming from the United States, we'll also give you an additional $200,000 for whatever research you want to do.
Well, and how soon before the administration starts calling foul on efforts like that? I mean, truly, it would be such silly, bad look, but that's the kind of thing they get their panties in a bunch about. Because it used to be that we got all of the best researchers from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's what happened. We were the spot. Yeah.
We're also hamstringing because this is kind of breaking news, but the current U.S. administration just said that Chinese nationals, legal visa holders, can no longer work for NASA.
Wow.
I heard they're pretty good at science over there. It seems like a bit of a cutting off your nose to spite your face situation.
I mean, it's an espionage protected. It's a protective measure against espionage.
That's fair.
But,
We're going to talk about that a little later in the episode today as well. So okay, fair enough. Devil's advocate. I'm with you on that. I understand that part.
Ben, would you mind if I double down on something really fast?
Sure.
I'm nervous about this for a whole other reason now, because I was looking at another series of stories about the nation's report card. I don't know if you guys look at that ever.
Yes. Yeah.
Just about how low the reading and science and math skills are specifically for 12th year or high school seniors.
Yeah, it's bad.
And just imagining the next batch of human beings that would become scientists when only 33% of those tested are actually ready for math at a college level. And I mean, I get that you can get theoretical cream of the crop or whatever that ends up going to prestigious institutions and become these next high level scientists. It's just,
but we got less cream. That's the reality. There's less cream. We need more cream.
And you know, like as a parent, I guess, and of a Gen Z kid, let's also maybe be thoughtful in saying that maybe that life isn't for everybody, and that just because you pursue a certain maybe more creative path or a path that's more online or something, it's very valid. And I'm not saying that every kid should have aspirations to be an influencer, but I think there's a certain different kind of smarts that comes with that generation.
100%.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
100%. And agreed. There's also, I was thinking about this while researching this week's Strange News segment. And the way I like to think of it, guys, is that everyone is a scientist at some level, right? Everybody becomes good at something, right? Or has a certain knack or a call or an ability. And it's, I think it's been very damaging in the American education system for generations. People were told that you have to go to college to make it in the United States, which is simply not the case. And shout out to everybody who checked out our student loan conspiracy episode, because that thing is true and damaging. To this point, Matt, one troubling comment I was reading in a couple of different forums from medical experts actually was it was imploring people in the United States to get any medical care they needed done as soon as possible. And it said, we have to consider that the next generation of doctors may well not be as capable in the United States as the current generations due to the shifting nature of education and foisting so much critical thoughts upon large language models, right? Not really writing your own essays. So this is a concern. It's the same concern that led France, Australia, and Norway, and several other nations to attract scientists in the United States. But Matt, I want to throw back to you because we were talking a little bit off air about, I think we're on the same page. Obviously, everybody has their own talents. Everything is a science and everyone can be a scientist. But I think we all share the same agreement that you don't have to go to college if it's not a fit for you.
Certainly you don't have to go to college. I would just say that if you want to have the type of expertise that we're talking about here, scientists who are going to lead fields that end up, producing innovation, you do have to go to college and you do have to work your ass off, and you have to, find a way to navigate all of those systems that we've talked about before, the peer-reviewed system, the getting grants and all that. And it
Publish
is this,
or perish, yeah.
And that isn't to speak down in any way to anybody who doesn't go to college. It's just, I love the sentiment. It's a really good sentiment, and I agree with it. And, one day you could become a podcaster.
You too. It's true.
But if you're
not going to learn deep science on YouTube videos. So you can learn some general science explanation and get a broader sense of things, but you need to learn from the best and be in institutions of learning that specialize in that kind of stuff. If that's where you want to take your brain and your life. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Matt. It's just
okay.
I think we're all passionate about this.
Yeah, we've talked about the Khan Academy many times and other resources that exist out there that can teach you things. And you can take classes at Harvard online for free. Or at least you could a while back.
But you still can.
But if you don't have that interaction with others who are in those same pursuits, in those same fields, and the professors, honestly, it's the professors, in my mind, the people you're going to glean that high-level information from, it's not the same.
Yeah, agreed. I'd like to add some more to this because it is an exodus. It does touch upon conspiracy, which is why we're including it in this week's Strange News segment. In a statement from Australia's Global Talent Attraction Program, they said, Australia has an urgent and unparalleled opportunity to attract the smartest minds leaving the United States to seed capability here and, to our earlier point, nurture the next generation of scientists and innovators, right? This is where we learn that knowledge is transmissible, right? And technology is transmissible. This is something that a lot of people don't think about because we don't like to think about it. When you think of a scientist exodus, you're thinking of things like Operation Paperclip in World War II. Well, the sequel is here. It's Exodus Electric Boogaloo at this point. I also want to shout out a university, Marseille over in France, that created a program called Safe Place for Science. As soon as they opened this program, as reported by Alana Wise over at NPR, nearly 300 scientists applied immediately because they were concerned about cuts for funding, and they are seeking refugee status. So not refugee based on one's personal identity or nor creed or nor ethnicity or anything like that. Based upon one's knowledge, one becomes a refugee as far as the international community is concerned. And that is, beat me here, Dylan, that is extremely fucking worrying.
Agreed.
I don't know where it goes. To your point, Matt, I don't know if we can apply ourselves as podcaster refugees. I think, no offense to us, I don't know if the skill set is right there.
All we have to do is watch out what we post, right? On our social medias. That's all we got to do.
I deleted that off of our notes.
Well, that's
the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I get that too. Like, let's spend a second on that because, I was thinking about how different positions in the public sphere have different roles and responsibilities, right? If you're a politician, it's your job, it's your remit to make political statements. If you are a member of the armed forces, you have to be very careful what you post. And we all know that. And if you are a professor, let's think about this. Not as the professor, you're the student, okay? And you find out that your professor or your educator is posting a bunch of hate speech. Let's say you're a Welsh transfer student and you stumble across your professor's TikTok, and your professor's TikTok is all about how they hate the Welsh and they think they have tiny fingers or something like that. Would you feel safe going to that class?
Well, no, and it's an interesting parallel too with a lot of what's going on right now. A lot of talk in the government after I think we can all agree, tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk about prohibiting hate speech. And, we know that hate speech technically, of course, is protected speech, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences for your speech. So if you're in a position like that as a person, an educator or whatever it might be, a professional person, and you are seen as spreading this kind of stuff, there will be consequences. People will not want to be around you. There not that you can be prosecuted, but social consequences are going to kick in.
Yeah. And it's a bag of badgers for sure, because the First Amendment is, the first one. So hopefully, people clearly had their priorities in order when they were amending the Constitution. And at this point, we want to pause. There's a lot of stuff we're not going to get to: the airstrikes on Venezuelan boats, the recent coup of LimeWire acquiring Fire Festival. That one's for you, Noel.
So weird. Two scam-based organizations joining forces. You love to see it.
Their press release is awesome because in their press release, LimeWire literally says, what could possibly go wrong? So points to you guys. We want to hear from all scientists, all academics, researchers. And you know what? No, we want to hear from all of you fellow conspiracy realists who are considering relocating from the United States. Tell us if you're doing it. Tell us if you have decided to stay.
Please don't go.
And tell us why. We want to hear from you. Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com. We're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and we'll return with more strange news. I am so pumped to hear about emotional support animals.
And we've returned. I'm just going to lead off with the most fun story of the bunch, of my bunch that I brought. Walmart has banned a gentleman in Pennsylvania, of all places, for bringing his emotional support alligator into the store. Apparently he'd done it numerous times previously and had no issues, but this time after customer complaints, Wesley Silva, 60, of West Brownsville, Pennsylvania, was told that he is no longer allowed to come into the store. A Yahoo News piece about this by Danette Wilford had this to say: despite being harnessed and on a leash, also wearing a dress in photos, Silva was ordered by the store to keep the emotional support alligator named Jinsai Oshi out. We have been going to that Walmart for about 3.5 years, he says, and normally the reaction is, that's pretty cool, or that is awesome that you have a pet alligator, man. This is what Silva had to say to WPXI, a local news organization there in Pennsylvania. Despite there having not been previous complaints, it just takes one, and that's fair, unidentified shopper to say that they felt their safety was being threatened, especially in the case of children. I don't want to shop with alligators, she said, the unidentified shopper. Okay. I don't plan on shopping there anymore. This is, has the potential to be a bit of a PR nightmare for the Walmart Corporation. The
question
Walton
for the court.
family. Yes, of course.
Question for the court. Do we have the size of the gator?
It would take two big beefy arms to hold it aloft, let's just say. So medium, I would say.
Okay, medium gator. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it does appear that this gentleman loves to dress his gator, Jinsai Oshi, in fancy couture. There's a picture of him holding the gator, wearing what looks to be like a cable knit sweater with a fur-lined collar. And that's on top of the dress, the aforementioned dress. Jinsai Oshi, by the way, is one word. But actually, when I Googled it, this might interest you, Ben, it apparently is not on its own in that form a thing in Japanese, but the words separately, Jinsai means life, and Oshi is sort of a fan term to refer to like the object of your fandom, or your stanness. So I guess if you put it together in that way, it could kind of mean the best one, like the best one in life.
And you can tell he really cares about the gator too.
1,000,000%. And I fully get that, but I do think it's interesting, and we'll bring this into the conversation. The laws surrounding emotional support animals and like what constitutes an emotional support animal and how that's different from a service animal. It's my understanding that they're both protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I don't think you can just say this is my emotional support animal. I believe you have to have some paperwork or prescription or something?
State by state, actually, because some airlines have recently banned more quote unquote exotic emotional support animals. Like you can't just have a peacock with you and take it through the TSA.
Yeah, well, Walmart's website does say, according to the Yahoo piece, that only service animals outlined in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which includes dogs and miniature horses, apparently, are welcome in the department store. However, they plan to reach out to the state, to your point, of Pennsylvania for additional guidance. So maybe this is one of those precedent-setting cases that'll lead to some more specificity around what constitutes an emotional support animal. Apparently, the gator spends a lot of their time in a pool outside and in a bathtub of water at night. So Silva definitely loves this creature and has other similar creatures, creepy crawlies in his menagerie. Reptiles, including 6 snakes, a leopard gecko, a Komodo dragon, and an additional alligator plus a dog. So you do kind of have to wonder why the dog didn't get the emotional support designation.
It's a callous dog, obviously.
Maybe so.
Very
very non-empathetic.
Emotionally. Matt, can you do the final word for Pennsylvania on this? What should Pennsylvania do, man?
Well, I don't know about Pennsylvania. I just know when you look at somebody's face, sometimes you can tell that you're going to like that person, that person seems really cool. It's something about
friendly.
The way his eyes open and the way his smile is. You can just see, I like this Wesley dude.
100%.
And whatever his alligator is doing, I'm for it. And I think Pennsylvania should be for it.
Oh, all right. I like that. I like that. And pardon the hubris for a second. I thought you were talking about Noel, Dylan, and myself, but
Oh, you guys too. Sure. But this guy
we
in
got the
particular,
twinkle. We got the twinkle.
it's something in the
spades,
eyes
for sure.
Yeah.
it's specifically on the NBC News article. It's just looking at his face. I'm like,
is he holding the fur collar
and he's,
sweater?
He's so happy.
There? Yeah, he does. Look
He's happy. He's clearly not planning some kind of alligator-related violence or heist. He just wants everybody to see how much he loves his little buddy.
Yep.
Sure. And I just wanted to read off a couple of tweets. No, actually, these are threads under the heading Justice for Jinsai Oshi. People are getting too carried away with these emotional support animals. I hate alligators. They are vicious creatures. Okay, a little harsh. The most surprising part is that this was not in Florida. Let's see. Emotional support, my butt. He will get even more emotional when this thing bites his hand off. I do not blame the store. I would have banned this thing from entering the store as well. I had my own store. Suppose a kid walks in, touches the alligator, and then gets threatened and bites the child. These are all very reasonable things. Sure. I mean, I don't know that you can fully domesticate an alligator, and the fact that the power of those jaws. But then dogs have just as powerful jaws and sharp teeth.
Yeah, but dogs are domesticated. You could tame an individual gator, right? And it's funny because, we've been going through a phase of human-animal interaction for a while. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. It turns out, by the way, that some whales are trying to use air bubbles to communicate with humans. And orcas are bringing humans treats, and no one knows why.
Sick. Sort of like the way my cat leaves me like a desiccated mouse. On the
exactly like that, for some reason. And with that in mind, taking it back to gators, what's fascinating here is that the reptilian brain is so different, right, to the human brain as currently understood by science. So an alligator or a crocodile can be acclimated to human presence, right? For sure. Not quite the same thing as Dr. Venkman wanting to hop in my lap, or Meadow wanting to play with Matt, or Apollo wanting to get the zoomies. But I would posit that alligators are one of the non-human animals that you can learn to live with.
I think that's probably true. And then one last point I'll read from the threads thread. If every animal is accepted, then you will see people walking around with elephants and lions inside Walmart. I do think it is a bit of a slippery slope argument. And maybe the point here is that there should be some clarification around size and domesticatability stats for some of these types of animals. So interesting. But it does appear, though, that there are a list of sort of pre-approved animals on the in the act, the People with Disabilities Act. And last thing, someone here on Threads added Target and said, "Here's your chance to step up."
There we go.
So you love to see that. Real quick, a couple of additional ones. We got 4 folks arrested in the UK for projecting Trump Epstein images on Windsor Castle ahead of the president's visit. In addition, nearby, another group displayed a massive crowdsourced tapestry showing the president and his buddy Jeffrey Epstein that could be seen from Air Force One near Windsor Castle.
Are they actual images, or is it like...
Yeah, they're really high fidelity.
High fidelity images. The video in question, actually, I hadn't seen this part of the image, but man, Jeffrey and Trump are boogieing down together. They're like doing the twist. There's some kind of party, and they're just really having a grand old time. Reading from Forbes in a piece by Scylla Ditya Ray, the British political activist group led by donkeys, that's the name of the group, led by donkeys, appeared to take credit as they shared a photo of the projection on the walls of the British monarch's royal residence on Instagram, followed by the caption, "Hey Donald, welcome to Windsor Castle." The projection showed old videos of Trump's interactions with Epstein and photos of an alleged inscription signed by the president, which read, "To Jeff, you are the greatest." In an official statement, Thames Valley Police said 4 people were arrested on suspicion of, I love this and I want to unpack this, guys, malicious communications. Okay. Following a public stunt in Windsor, and all 4 were kept in custody. Do not feel like they have enough to prosecute these people. It is a projection, right? They didn't deface anything. This idea, what's malicious about it? I guess it's really touchy, being that it's the royal residence, and that any activity surrounding it, approaching it, what have you, would be taken seriously. That's the case here, actually, according to Chief Superintendent Felicity Parker, who said, "We take any unauthorized activity around Windsor Castle extremely seriously. Our officers responded swiftly to stop the projection." However, these are real images. This stuff happened,
Yeah, it's not deep fake stuff. No. It's not AI. It's also, the laws around libel and defamation in the UK for now are a lot tighter than they are here in the States. But to your point, Noel, I doubt that it feels more like they're just trying to make an example and arrest people more so than carrying through actual convictions in the court.
Yeah, to show that they're on board with, helping out, trying to polish Trump's image. Earlier on Tuesday, they say in the Forbes piece, protesters had unfurled a large banner of a photo of Trump and Epstein in an area outside Windsor Castle to protest the president's visit. A separate activist group, not led by donkeys, this one's called Everyone Hates Elon, which usually goes after, you guessed it, the billionaire Elon Musk, took credit for the banner in an Instagram post saying, "The British public welcomed him with this gigantic banner right outside Windsor Castle, where he's staying with the king this week." To the point of it being crowdsourced, 1,770 people paid for it, which couldn't have been cheap. It's massive. And this post referred to this visit as being about polishing Trump's image, and then sarcastically urged followers to not share the image. "Thank you for cooperating at this difficult time for the president." Malicious communications.
Yeah. Did they include images of Prince Andrew on there, considering where they were?
Don't believe so. That's a very interesting point, Matt, because of the libel laws in the UK. Maybe that was a more hot button thing than they wanted to touch. It was specifically Trump and Epstein kind of cutting a rug together.
Wow. Interesting.
What do you guys think about this concept? Is this a British thing? Malicious communication? I guess I haven't heard that thrown around here in the States.
It's an interesting phrase. Yeah, if we are, because you're not going to hear that too much in the United States. It's more the idea of communicating or conspiring to commit a crime. That kind of communication would be not protected under the First Amendment. You can't say, for instance, "Hey, we should get together and kill a fellow podcaster." Who would we go after? Jonathan, right?
Well, yeah, just for the sake of example, why not? Guys, it is an incredibly UK statute.
Yeah, I'm looking at the act.
It was the act, the Malicious Communications Act of 1988, and I would argue that the way it's laid out, this does not fall under it. It's
cyber harassment.
Well,
right?
Okay, intent to cause distress or anxiety. Okay, one could argue that seeing this, but come on, man, are we that weak-willed that speech is often intended to cause distress and anxiety. I mean, whether that's its exclusive purpose or not. Something like this is something the president would love it if people never brought up again. And I'm sure it's stressful whenever he sees it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. And that doesn't mean it's not relevant in this discussion of releasing these files.
It's also so conveniently vague by design, because that anxiety is probably self-reported.
1,000,000%.
This is
pain and suffering is pretty vague as well, isn't it? In lawsuits by design.
This is built as a vehicle to crack down on free speech.
Just to read from it, to your point, Ben, it includes sending threats, makes sense. Offensive content, okay. Inappropriate images, seems like that's covered with offensive content. Or false information, also get that. That would fall under slander and libel laws, which are, to your point, Ben, tighter over there, and can be a criminal offense under laws like the UK's Malicious Communications Act. To report such an offense. Oh, there's also an additional act that might be related, the Online Safety Act of 2023. But yeah, it does refer to texts, emails, or posts sent with the intent to cause distress or anxiety to the recipients or others. One could argue that internet comments of any kind could be considered this thing.
But this was a projection, right?
It was a projection.
Right. So it's not leaving a physical imprint on the building.
It's also not online.
It's very interesting.
Public sphere communication. That's how they would do it.
why we probably would all argue that they don't have much of a leg to stand on. And to your point, Ben, this is more of a symbolic act of solidarity during the president's visit than it is any kind of thing that will stick legally.
Oh, and yeah, and that reminds me, I almost texted you guys. Woody Allen, by the way, went on record and he said he had a great time with Epstein.
Was it on that podcast? He was on Bill Maher's podcast recently, and apparently said some stuff and things.
He said he got invited to dinners, and they had a great time hanging out at the dinners. It was like an old school salon. One night would be comedians, one night would be magicians,
one night would be a sex party.
And, he didn't get into that part, but
magician sex party, perhaps.
You know what? I don't even like stage magicians. That's my one great prejudice. And I am kind of on board with seeing what a magician sex party would look like.
Yeah, I'm a huge magician nerd. I love it. Well, guys, really quickly, I just wanted to mention one last thing. This may be something to look into or piggyback into another episode because it's something that's very relevant right now. A Chinese dissident who led pro-democracy group in New York City pleads guilty to spying for Beijing. A member of New York City's Chinese dissident community pleaded guilty to acting as an agent of the Chinese Communist Party. This individual's name is Yongjun Tang, 68 years old, long an outspoken critic of the Chinese Communist Party, participating in protests around Manhattan, the consulate in particular, and founding a pro-democracy nonprofit in Flushing, Queens, where he's lived since 2002. But just all along as he was acting as a voice of dissent against his homeland's government. ABC News reports Jake Offenhartz of the Associated Press, this is just a reprint from ABC, that he was in fact reporting back activities, reporting on fellow Chinese American activists, naming names, etc. So federal prosecutors brought charges against Tang last August. They believe that he accepted the tasks in order to gain approval to visit family members in China. Tang's betrayal, they said, of the ideals of the U.S. to help the Chinese government repress pro-democracy activists goes against the very values he claimed to promote. This is rather from FBI Assistant Director in Charge Christopher G. Raya, who said this in a statement. So we're talking a lot about spying and Chinese infiltration and China becoming such a massive superpower, outpacing, outranking, outmaneuvering the U.S. in a lot of ways, with aid from some of these types of folks. He was granted asylum, in fact, back in 2002 after escaping to Taiwan from a Chinese prison, where he was held for 12 years for his involvement in student-led protests in Tiananmen Square. So he comes by his activism, honestly. So you got to wonder how they turned him. Because that would be a big risk to be a protester against the Chinese government in China during those times in particular, where we know they were not messing around.
Yeah, scary stuff, man. It makes you wonder what happened, right?
It really does. So we'll leave it there. The last thing just to mention that there was a plane crash where pounds and pounds or kilos of cocaine bricks were discovered that were branded with the official SpaceX logo. And when I say official, I just mean the graphic. It's not like it was SpaceX officially sanctioned cocaine. It would more likely be ketamine if that was the case. Har, har, har. But Matt, you sent me that one. And it got us talking off air a little bit about how like in the 90s and 2000s, especially, this idea of like associating a street drug with a big brand like Mitsubishi or whatever, BMW, in the form of these little ecstasy pills that were pressed back in the day. This kind of harkened back to that a little bit. So nothing much more to it than that. It certainly wasn't actually SpaceX branded. Police puzzled by 180 kilos of SpaceX branded cocaine found at crash site. Like a Starship test flight, it went down, says the article from Futurism. A single engine plane crash landed in a field of sugarcane in Brazil over the weekend, according to local news media, killing the pilot and leaving behind 180 kilograms or almost 400 pounds of cocaine, probably valued in the $500,000 range. So,
wow.
That's it from me, y'all. Let's take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then we'll come back with our last strange news segment of the episode.
And we're back. Guys, branding your illicit, illegal drugs like that in that way feels like it would just get more eyes on you.
100%.
Am I wrong in that?
Well, but Ben pointed out too, it is like, what is it? The blue meth in Breaking Bad. You know, it's this idea of differentiating your product from others. And of course, the blue meth is what put a target on whomever was putting that supply out into the drug world, you know? So that is a good point, Matt. But Ben, what do you think? Is it worth the risk of that perhaps to differentiate your product out in the market?
Of course you want differentiation.
Yeah, of course you do. But I feel like you get way more eyes on you if an investigator can track down a specific, brand
batch or lot.
That's the Faustian bargain, right? It also, I hate to say it, I exercise empathy for all things, but branding illicit substances in this way, though I get the logic, sometimes the branding choices they take are indicative of maybe not being in the best mental state.
Fair.
Yep. That checks out.
I guess the implication here on the cocaine being that our product will zoom you into outer space or whatever.
And somebody on cocaine was like, you know what we should do then?
Yes,
not just space. We should do SpaceX. You guys.
Supply. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of those kinds of thoughts in those kinds of moments and having eyes on, let's jump to somebody we should all have our eyes on and our ears open to, because it's some of the coolest, best potential news that has come out in a long time, coming out of New Mexico, when Governor Michelle Grisham announced around the time of September 11th that she and the state of New Mexico are going to offer free childcare universally to all families of all income levels in the state. How incredible is that as a potential idea, right? Sitting around and blue skying and going, oh man, what could we do that would be really great for people? Well, we could save people like thousands of dollars a year if we figured out a way for the state to pay for childcare. Right. And they're doing it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was listening, the first reaction from the cynical in the United States will probably be, oh, you mean like every other developed country?
Sure.
Nice.
Sure. And you can hold that, right? And that feeling, and I get that feeling because I feel it very hard. But if we can turn it, right, change it, temper it a little bit to, oh, well, somebody is doing it. So that means maybe the rest of us could.
Isn't there an argument too, at least with the early discussions around this, that it could be a potential economic boon?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of support, because of people able to work more efficiently and not be stressed all the time. And,
right. It enables investment because it frees up. Everybody knows childcare can be so incredibly expensive, right?
Competitive because there aren't enough providers.
It can be a second mortgage. The rat race begins early for particular schools,
yes.
right? And placement. So yeah, this is an investment in the future that, if implemented correctly, has a wonderful, objective, inarguable financial boon for the state.
Absolutely. And they did it without having to charge people who live in the state extra taxes or anything. Mm-hmm. They literally took surplus oil money, put it into a giant trust, which is nearing $10 billion right now.
Tight Norway style.
Yes, and they're using that money that continues to grow because it's an investment. Well, it'll continue until the bottom falls out of everything. But it will continue to grow as things are doing well, and people won't have to pay that extra money. It makes me so happy.
Doesn't it also make you so angry though, because of how possible it seems, and really makes you question, why isn't this a priority and why isn't this being done on a federal level? Yeah, we'll have GTA 6 before we have, universal childcare. And I think this applies to healthcare too, because this type of model could be used in a similar way. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. If I was mixing and matching healthcare with childcare, I just think the mind sort of jumps to that as like, well, if you can do it for this, why can't we do it for that?
Like essential things.
Childcare is healthcare,
also
right?
True.
Very much so when you're considering the psychological development, the formative years, and the need for support and interaction. It's deeper than a Band-Aid. And one important thing to realize about this kind of legislation is that, given the environment and the milieu in which it originates, those private entities are still getting paid, to be clear. The state is paying, right, and cutting out some middlemaning, but it's not as though people are technically losing money as an industry. So this is not something to knee-jerk react and scream socialism at.
Wasn't there
they're
some
actually
federal
building
money that helped start this off as well? Some coronavirus relief money?
Maybe I didn't see that in the AP
It just
News
says here
article.
in the AP, New Mexico's current childcare subsidies among the most expansive in the nation. Sorry, okay, but this is still, they're already ahead of the curve for this. We're initiated with federal coronavirus relief money. So just a good example of using some of that stuff to help everyone.
Yeah. In that same article, if you want to read this, head on over to AP News and read Morgan Lee's article, New Mexico is the first state to promise free childcare for all families. And in there, maybe I'm just too hyper-focused on some of this, but I was reading about that surplus oil money as like pumping that.
That's for this. This is just saying that New Mexico in general is already miles ahead of a lot of the rest of the country in childcare subsidies because of the way they smartly use those federal funds. That's
that they've been focused on this for a while.
Man.
So again, this isn't a Thanos finger snap, right?
Yeah.
Of ending corruption. This is something that proves government can work.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, hey, speaking of proving that things can work, guys, there's a hefty weight on one man's shoulders to prove that his invention can function. He and his team. Dr. Charles Bueller. That's right. Bueller. That's
Bueller.
the one.
Is it his day off?
No.
Not today.
No, this guy is not going to have a day off.
He's
for
on.
a while. Yeah.
This dude has been on it for a long time. Dr. Charles Bueller, a NASA engineer and the co-founder of something called Exodus Propulsion Technologies. This dude is a veteran of such NASA projects as the Space Shuttle, the International Space Station, the Hubble Telescope, and this really cool new thing called NASA's DUST program, which is essentially a digital replication of the moon to use for testing things in a virtual environment, but testing the physical things you're going to build to navigate that environment.
Which is way less expensive than trying it out live. So, by the way, thank you. And we mentioned Dr. Bueller a couple times in the past as well, because as you said, Matt, he's been at this game for a minute.
Oh, he has been. But the reason why we're talking about him today is this Exodus Propulsion Technologies company. And I'm going to read a quote from Dr. Bueller. This comes from The Debrief, written by Christopher Plain. I will tell you the title in a moment. Here's a quote from Dr. Bueller. The most important message to convey to the public is that a major discovery occurred. This discovery of a new force is fundamental in that electric fields alone can generate a sustainable force onto an object and allow center of mass translation of said object without expelling mass. There are rules that include conservation of energy, but if done correctly, one can generate forces unlike anything humankind has done before. It will be this force that we use to propel objects for the next 1,000 years, until the next thing comes. What we're talking about here is very similar to the M drive, the EM drive that we've discussed in the past, to the things that, what is the name of that company? IVO Limited. IVO Limited and the group behind the M drive have been attempting this kind of electric propulsion system, microwave propulsion system, something that does not burn fuel or have any kind of expellant, right? Your physics says that you have an equal and opposite reaction to things, right? So if you're trying to get lift or propulsion, you got to push something out the back in order for stuff to move, especially in space when you don't have gravity working against you. And if you do have gravity working against you, you have to put enough force out to escape that gravity, to get escape velocity and to get out of Earth's orbit, right? This person, Dr. Bueller, if you read through this entire article, you will see that they are using essentially electricity in this really interesting way of these super light substances that can essentially create propulsion without expelling anything. It just makes my mind go a little when I'm reading it.
It's just like whoosh, like it literally just creates what? Lift? It pushes air? Like what? I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, so one thing to know about Dr. Bueller, he is one of the foremost experts on a thing called electrostatics and surface physics. And this group, Bueller and his colleagues have been working on attempting to create things that are similar to like the M drive, the microwave drive, looking at other groups of people that are trying to find a propellantless drive of some sort, like the ion drives and those things.
I'm picturing magnets, like a force generated from static that like is, maybe that's not quite right, but like if I'm thinking of the force of magnets, that would be like a force created that doesn't technically expel anything. So it must be somewhat along those lines, or I'm such a layman. I'm sorry if I'm grasping at straws.
You can look at a picture of the type of driver, the type of system that they're attempting to build over at exoduspropulsion.space, SPACE. And on the front of that website, you will see what looks like something attached at the very center that can spin, right? And then at the ends of it, you've got whatever this thing is, the electrostatic materials. And then you can see how if you send energy into this thing via, let's say, a battery or something, you can create propulsion and make this thing spin. One quote from Bueller is this: "Our materials are composed of many types of charge carrier coatings that have to be supported on a dielectric film. Our aim is to make it as lightweight as possible, but that is sometimes difficult since the films and their coatings have to have a high dielectric breakdown strength."
Heard that.
This is definitely an episode because, look, yeah, Bueller's not without his critics for sure.
Oh yeah.
But the amazing thing here is the claim that we haven't just figured out how to use existing things in an innovative way, but that Bueller and his cohort have literally discovered a new force.
Yes, that's what they're saying. And this guy is, again, not some chump, not some inventor in a garage saying, "Eureka, I've discovered it." And it's not that the inventors of the M drive or the inventors of these other, potentially revolutionary technologies are kooks or wrong. It's just this guy has bona fides and his team has bona fides, and they are saying they've discovered something here. I think it's at least worth giving them the benefit of the doubt until it is at least disproven, or it's proven that you can't actually gain this.
Yeah, it's worth investigating.
Is this what might be referred to as like vaporware or something like that? Or just sort of like, not vaporware, maybe that's more of like a software thing, but science that sounds great conceptually, but maybe isn't actually possible, and that we need to see the proof before we can get behind it?
Like AI?
Well, that's not far off for sure.
Well, again, we've seen these kinds of things before for a long time, like the perpetual energy devices and these things.
The M drive, like you mentioned, yeah.
And the M drive was pretty much debunked. You can read articles about that too. Let me send everybody over to this one debrief article. The title is "NASA Veterans Propellantless Propulsion Drive That Physics Says Shouldn't Work Just Produced Enough Thrust to Overcome Earth's Gravity," which is insane. The findings, according to Dr. Bueller, is that if you built this thing in a particular way, you could basically make it levitate and then continue to float up until it escapes Earth's gravity.
It's like fizzy lifting drinks.
Sorry,
so how Willy Wonka reference is completely irrelevant. So sorry, please continue.
So the big questions are, well, how light would your space shuttle have to be to function with this, right?
I see.
How heavy can your paper airplane become?
But exactly. But in the end, it wouldn't matter if you were just using this engine, this drive, for propulsion once you're in space, right? Because if you could do that, then you only need a tiny bit of propulsion to get up to huge speeds while you're in space to continue accelerating.
And you are less burdened by the albatross of fuel.
Yes. Right? And you could use solar energy, right, from any star to fuel up whatever batteries you're using to power the thing. It's super cool stuff. Check it out. We'll probably do a full episode on it and go back through the M drive and through these other propellantless drives that have been proposed over the years. Because some of them have been tested by state governments and studied. Like DARPA is studying some of this stuff, as they're the ones that put out the original grants for some of these things.
Right. And this is an exciting time. And that's what we're talking about when we say there's this tie-in with science in our weekly Strange News segment this week, because we're seeing enormous opportunity, but then we're also seeing an enormous need for supporting people and institutions doing this research. You know what I mean? Like, imagine this turns out to be true and Bueller goes to a completely different country and works on their equivalent of the space program.
That sounds familiar, Ben. I almost want to say we did a segment on that at the very top of the show. Yeah, pretty likely to happen.
Well, that's it for me, guys. And I guess that concludes our episode of Strange News today.
We can't thank you enough, folks, for joining us on Strange News this week. We'll be back with more as things develop, and we cannot wait to hear from you. So you can drop us a call on a telephone. You can always send us an email, and you can reach us on the lines.
Oh, you sure can. I have a handle, Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook, where we have our Facebook group. Here's where it gets crazy on X, FKA, Twitter. And on YouTube, where we have video content for your perusing enjoyment. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we are the handle Conspiracy Stuff Show.
We also have a phone number. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you hanging out with us every week, maybe a couple times a week. So why not call us and just talk to us? It could be about anything we talked about today, anything we've talked about at all, anything we haven't talked about yet. Just give us a call. Our number is 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know within the message if we can use your name and message on the air. If you'd like to instead send us an email, you can do that too. We are
the entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive, no matter how long, no matter how short, whatever works for you. Give us the links, give us the image, give us the entrance to the rabbit hole. We will do the rest. And please remember that suggestions or things that inspire you from our Strange News segment or listener mail inspire episodes in the future. We can't do this without you. We do have one weird question for you folks, and this is a surprise for you guys as well. I just read that a scientist has said he figured out the best comeback to an insult. He said he researched it, and it is true. Do you want to hear what it is?
Of course.
Silence.
Right. According to a neuroscientist named Dr. Dean Burnett, the best comeback to an insult, if you unfortunately have to deal with like bullies or rude people, is to simply say in a calm voice, "Calm down, Grandma." I don't know if the science is there. What do you guys think?
TBD.
I like the thumbs down technique that you outlined in a previous episode, Ben.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt, and we appreciate you. So find us, conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.